Welcome back, Tyler. I have the Director of Financial Planning at the Tranel Financial Group with us today, and we're going to talk about what the top 5% do and how they are so successful economically. And also, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions, Tyler, about like their mindset, how they think about what they're doing day in and day out in the future. So I'm going to turn it over to you almost immediately because I want you to go into this, but I want to give our listeners as well the understanding that these are good takeaways to implement somewhat immediately, but also just to think about as well.
Absolutely. So you asked a question there where you said, what are the top 5% doing, or how do the top 5% think? And I was actually listening to a different podcast through a mentor of mine that he had shared, and the similar analogy had come up. They weren't talking in this frame, but it was just a question that was asked. And imagine that I held up a backpack and I said, "Would you like to buy this backpack from me?" The first
Okay.
question that most people will ask is what?
How much is it?
How much does it cost?
Okay.
That question right there is a difference in mindset compared to what the top 5% of people think. The top
Okay.
the top 5% of people don't think what does it cost? They think what is it worth?
I
So think
love
about that.
that.
There could be $10,000 of cash in that backpack, right? You're
Okay.
immediately going to what it costs, and what you're missing out is on the opportunity of what it may be worth. So when you start to reframe that and you put that into the phrase of money, right? And you
Hmm.
start to think about that, a lot of
Hmm.
people think of uh, if they're not putting money in their checking or savings, or they can't see it day to day, they think of it as spending. You need to
Right.
reframe that thought process and say, I'm not spending, I'm investing. So
I
you're
love
not putting it
this.
in your savings account, you're putting it into something that you can't touch for later on that will be bigger than it is today, right? So it's
Mhm.
hard for people to envision a future that's bigger or so far in advance from where they are
There.
right now. But what the top 5% do is they're able to plan accordingly, and they're saying, I'm going to do small things today so I can have
Mhm.
big things later. And when you
Right.
take it into a bite-sized piece or lay it out in a detailed plan where you're saying, I'm doing X, Y, and Z,
Hmm.
right? Most very wealthy people, as they build and accumulate their wealth, right? Think of a small business owner that may have owned a business for 20 or 30 years. A lot of times, the majority of their wealth, Jenna, is built up in their business, right? It's
Right.
illiquid, but it's through
Hmm.
their valuation of their company, right? So a lot of
Yes.
times they'll feel like they're not doing enough, and they may have this huge net worth where somebody may have a huge or a high earning career, and
Hmm.
they've been building, 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 but haven't taken steps appropriately because they just want to see, oh, I can afford this now, or I can buy this now. They're working for a
Hmm.
paycheck and they're working for an item. They're not working for a future. And we see them all the time when we run through people. They get a raise and all of a sudden, oh, I buy a new car, right?
Yeah.
It's called lifestyle creep. So I can tell
Yes.
you countless clients that I've run into where they are stuck making, high six figures. And they're sitting
Hmm.
here saying, I'm living paycheck to paycheck because lifestyle creep has set in and they haven't
Wow.
planned accordingly. Right. So that's the first piece I would say. The top 5% view money as an
Mhm.
opportunity. And they're saying, how can I invest that money to generate more money when I'm sleeping? Right. So, how do I
Mhm.
invest in a way that can generate more for the future that I don't have to be working towards? That's the first way. The second way, as we dive through when we start looking at it, is really laying out the goals of the assets ahead of time. So I always sit down with clients. I say, what are the goals of your money? What's the
Right.
time horizon for achieving that goal? And then what's
Mhm.
the most efficient route to get there, whether it's through tax time or taxes, whether it's through growth, et cetera, for the risk that you're willing to take. If you ask yourself those three questions, right, and then you
Mhm.
start diving through it, you're going to know right away, okay, does this investment make sense or does it not? Does it fit into my
Right.
risk profile? Does it not? And you
Mhm.
literally just attack it, just like a checklist, right? Is this, what's my time horizon? What's the goal with the money? And then what's the most efficient way to get there? And then it just turns into rinse and repeat, right?
Right. Mhm.
Um, so I hope that answered your question somewhat of just changing that insight.
Absolutely. And so, what's like an immediate change that someone can make, obviously pending it be complimentary or free from that perspective, but what is an immediate change that someone can make in their day to day that can help that transition?
Well, I would say honestly, just start, just like if you're working out or if you were going on a nutrition plan or something. I've heard the term like I'm counting calories or I'm writing
Yeah.
down what I'm eating or I'm writing down a workout plan. Think of all those things you do. How often does somebody do that with their money?
Probably not often, if
Very
I had to
rarely,
guess.
right?
Yeah.
Very rarely. And you need to
Mhm,
do that same exact thing. So if you feel that you're overspending, you need to write down what you're spending money on, right? And then you
mhm,
need to track that and hold yourself accountable. If you feel that you need to, there's a book out there, it's called Pay Yourself First. And it talks about the
mhm.
one thing that gets skimped with most people when they get paid is themselves. They pay everything else, and then whatever's left is what they can spend. Why not
Okay.
reverse that and make yourself a budget item and saying, this
Mhm.
is what I'm going to hold myself accountable to, and everything else needs to fall in line. And the author of that
Okay.
book goes as far as saying, hey, I pay myself before I even pay my mortgage bill because I'm more important than my house. I'm not telling the listeners to do that, but I'm saying that's on the extreme end where people need to put themselves first from a financial stance and say, in order to hit these goals, if this is truly what I want and I'm going to make it
Yep.
happen, this is what I need to do. And you need to write it out. And that's something that people are missing on. So if you said, what's a free takeaway and something to
Mhm,
do, it's literally just take pen to paper and start mapping out what your goals are and then
mhm.
reverse engineering those to say, what can I do now to hold myself accountable to hit those goals?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, I love that. And also what you said at the very beginning too, which I'm going to reiterate, which is when you're thinking about what's in that backpack or what's, the next purchase you're doing, instead of saying what the cost is, it's what's that worth. And you could even
Mhm.
say, what's that worth to me? Right? Because
Correct.
each person has an individual perspective for that
Well, and
as
and
well.
that was the third point that I actually had written down in preparation of that question was just the top 5% of people have a team and they're willing to pay for services that are going to benefit them because they know what the value is and the worth is. They're not
Hmm.
viewing it as, you think about the top 5%, any one of them can probably do their own taxes, but it's
Sure.
time and energy and resources that they don't necessarily want to spend, and they can outsource that to a team that says you have this and you know more about it than I do, and it's mental
Right.
energy they don't have to put towards doing that. It's the same thing
Right.
with other projects. If your time is best suited, if you're really busy and you're really good at your career and your time is best suited doing that career and helping people, and you can make a great living doing it, then you can employ other people to come in and help you do other things that they're really good at to free up more of that time for you to allow
Mhm.
you to continue to expand and grow. It's an investment in yourself. So that's something that I had written down is that top 5% typically has a team, whether it be an advisor,
Mhm.
whether it be attorneys, whether it be CPAs, or a combination of all of them that are helping lead them to answers that they need or make things easier for them than they currently are.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that mindset because that's also investing in yourself. Going back to your second point of really investing in yourself and taking that to the next level. So, well, thank you so much, Tyler. I do appreciate that. That's a great mindset shift that we can all do better at to make sure that we're putting ourselves first, our families first, and our goals first as well. So, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Absolutely.